Hi everyone and welcome to Equestrian. Today we're gonna get a little academic. Have you ever wondered what your horse would say about their school? The summer break is coming soon and you can certainly say a lot about school whether you're a student or a parent. Well, it occurred to us to start summarizing the horse's school year. Let's see what it all looks like for some horses. Monday, first period. In PE, a grey gelding says, "The lady chased me around the school for an hour. Then I just wanted to sleep. I remember nothing of the other lessons and I slept in biology. I was so tired." Do you guys lunge your horses before riding? How long does it usually last? Well, and why exactly do you do that? Of course, warming up without the rider on is great for older horses that stay inside their stall for longer periods of time before their lessons. In that case, lunging can be useful to warm up the joints and the muscles without any added weight. A light 15 to 20 minute jog warms the horse's body up and makes up for a nice introduction to work under the saddle. It also can be a good solution for young, hot horses that spend most of their time inside the stall and really want to stretch their legs and let out excessive energy. A 20 to 30 minute lunge, just to let loose and mess around, is great in that situation. Although we need to pay attention to a few things. First up, we can't lunge such a horse in full equipment under a saddle. After all, any skill acquired in this school will be demonstrated under the rider. If you don't want a bucking bronco, fooling around should be done in loose clothes and not in work attire. That should be a halter or a rope halter and a lunge line or rope rather than a saddle and a bridle. We shouldn't fool around at school and put our feet on the desks at work. Therefore, fooling around should be accepted only in a place meant just for that. So a round pen, a special place in the paddock, not an inside or outside arena where you want to work your horse later on. Because firstly, it can interrupt someone else's training, and second, it teaches the horse poor behavior in the workplace. Then what about the horses that spend their days in a paddock or live outside 24/7? And what if your horse spends half of the day running wherever their legs can carry them? How much warming up on the lunge line does such a horse need if he has been running around all day? What purpose would such work serve? If you can't quite answer these questions yourself, maybe it's worth thinking back to our PE class on Monday. After all, you want the horse to make progress and acquire new knowledge. On the other hand, if the horse, despite being polite and calm in the pasture, behaves poorly enough in its lessons to require lunging, then maybe it's better to think about what's actually going on. After all, this behavior is not caused by excessive energy. And if so, it must be the stress related to the lesson. Take a look at the video on strange horse behaviors because there may be some answers for you there. It may also be that your horse has learned and trained in such a way that at school he is naughty and jumps on desks, and at home, so in the pasture, he politely obeys mom and grandma. In that case, you should rethink your parenting and teaching methods. Next is Tuesday, fourth period. Biology. A 5-year-old gelding says, "I was hungry before the lesson because there was no lunch and I had no lunch from home, and ended up with a heartburn. I could not concentrate." Contrary to popular belief, this happens often, especially in youngsters, as youngsters are always hungry. We all know that breaks in feeding horses are not good for their nutritional system. In our perception, however, it makes no sense to ride a hungry horse. Not only because he is simply irritated, but also because the high level of stomach acids will cause stomach problems in the long term. The long breaks in feeding are not advised in herbivores, in general. We're not trying to tell you to stuff your horse with a full content meal before riding, but taking a moment to eat an extra portion of hay, or half a measure of chaff, or some alfalfa really gets the job done and gives you a comfortable ride. If you want to go out for training just at the time when the horse should get his full content meal, then think about coming in an hour earlier and giving him something more nutritious. For example, a third of his normal meal. After the ride, he will eat the rest and won't be hungry during your lesson. Think about this, especially if you are using a horse fed only 2 content meals a day. Next, we've got Wednesday, second period. Math. MR types. In math, I couldn't concentrate one bit. Everything made me nervous. The guy who is supposed to teach me something put a stupid bag over my head. He said I was stupid because I was afraid of everything. I felt like an idiot. All the horses were laughing at me, so I just gave up and let him make an idiot out of me. Maybe I am stupid. It's important how the horse feels after your training. We take the best approach to further learning if we feel that we succeeded in something, that we are great, that maybe it was difficult and scary, but we managed. Many times we watch videos of radical desensitization of horses with natural methods and wonder where caring for the horse, its psyche and comfort ends, and where bullying, domination and lowering one's self-esteem begins. Of course, it is fantastic to see the horses approach everything the rider puts in front of them with confidence and fulfilling the rider's wishes with enthusiasm and willingness. Unfortunately, just as often we see videos of pseudo-specialist wizards who enforce obedience based on the horse's defeat at the very first meeting with the horse, during which trust cannot be formed. We often ask ourselves, what is supposed to be the result of such training, because certainly not an interested student who wants to explore the subject. Next up is Thursday, period 5, math. A bay gelding, an ambitious athlete says. The lady asked the result of 2 plus 2. I said 4. She asked again. I answered nicely with a full sentence that 2 plus 2 is 4. Then she asked again, how much is 2 plus 2? I answered and she said fine, and again asked what's 2 plus 2. When she asked the 5th time, I answered 18, and she got all mad and tried to punish me. I don't know what's this woman's problem, but I don't like her. And you guys, how many repetitions do you do? Do you ask to perform the exercise once and that satisfies you? If the horse has performed what you asked for well, then what do you do? Do you pat and praise your horse, or like the lady say, one more time? Do you think at all about what will be a good result for today? What if it is quite good, not perfect, but still good? Do you try to correct the movement, or are you satisfied? Or do you act like it never happened? What kind of feedback does your horse get from you? You can find some tips on that in our video on how to make progress in horsemanship. We always have a picture of what will be a good result for us today set in our minds. We also try to imagine what will be satisfactory and what will exceed expectations. Then we relate each movement to something specific. Then we grade the movement in our head. That's it in a nutshell. Evaluations are good if they are fair and give feedback. And if then good grades are combined with a reward, then it's pleasant for both the rider and the horse. Moving on to Friday, PE, 6th period. Pony aged 10. The lady tied a skipping rope to me and waved it left and right across my cheeks when I was just curious about what she was wearing. At first I bolted because I thought it was to test my speed. It hurt a little. It was as if she couldn't tell me to back off beforehand. What's the point of hitting me with the rope and waving hands if she could have just told me to back off? Whether you use natural methods or launch your horse classically, you need to be understood at the beginning of each session. On the other hand, you also need to understand the expectations and ambitions of the student. Sometimes it is actually enough to say things out loud and clear. Do you happen to forget that voice is also a riding aid, and one of the more effective ones actually? The second issue is equipment. Many times we see videos where horses are overly punished with a rope halter. It's as if the knowledge that this is a relatively harsh piece of tack goes over some people's heads. The rope halter has knots located at very sensitive points on the horse's head, and is therefore a strong acting piece of equipment. There is a reason why the regular halters have a rather soft finish in the same places as the rope halter has knots in. A rope halter is not a regular halter and also requires feeling and knowledge. It would be nice not to forget this and at least occasionally consult with a specialist. Moving on to Monday, 2nd period, English. The American quarter horse says, "It went as always. First, the attendance, then checking homework, then reading from the textbook and tasks to do. Boring as per usual." Have you ever felt that in school? Well, we definitely have. Boring lessons after which you remember nothing. I still think it was a huge waste of time. And how do you solve such a problem? Do you plan your trainings so that your horse can learn something new and useful, or do you just plan out boring tasks for them to do? Do you care that one lesson is different from another, or do you think repetition is okay? Let us know down in the comments. On one hand, there is nothing wrong with training on some circles, going around the arena 2 times on both sides, then doing the same faster, performing 2 exercises and calling it a day from time to time. But doing it often, for example once a week, it's technically not bad, but it doesn't push you forward either. Next is Tuesday, PE class, period 5, a clever chestnut types. The crazy lady first said run, then stop, then run again, but she held me by the head. You know I don't like someone holding me by the head. And again she says we should be running, but she's holding me by the head. Well, I finally got pissed and kicked out. Well, I don't believe this never happened to you guys. I guess every rider in their career has had such misunderstandings. We just wanted to show you guys how some cues can be perceived by a horse. There is a moment when you realize that the calf and the leg are not the same thing and that the calf can move the horse forward, to the side and more. We will probably still come back to the topic of holding but wanting to go forward. For now, you can find a bit of guidance in the video about the basics of horseback riding, what is responsible for what. If you want to know how to turn such a lesson into something more fun, we've included some exercises in our video on improving the quality of horseback riding, and a bit of guidance in the one on lateral movements. Wednesday, period 3, history. A polite black mare says, the teacher is never satisfied. I try, I do my best. I study carefully at home and revise with my friends in the pasture. She asks me a question, so I answer. She says correct and asks another more difficult one. Then again she asks a more difficult question. Finally she asks one that I don't know the answer to. And then I always get punished. When should I stop answering the questions well? I'm going to get punished anyways, so why even try? I don't want to try anymore. Can I drop out of school? Every student, even the best, is discouraged by escalating requirements. Just because a horse has performed something nicely, especially a young horse, doesn't mean you can immediately increase the requirements. Sometimes it's luck and the horse just performs your exercise well because everything played out well in that exact moment. This is not a bad thing. On the contrary, it's very cool. Each and every attempt must be rewarded though, so that the student wants to make another one. It doesn't matter if the attempt is successful or not, at least not when you're trying something new. We often talk about finishing an exercise on a good performance. The problem is that sometimes the first one is good and the next ones are only worse. What do you do then? It usually means that the horse is not physically or mentally prepared to perform better. We simply reward the attempt and do something else, easy, that is sure to go well and can be rewarded. There's always tomorrow. And by the way, such hardworking horses are fantastic, and we are very sad that some riders kill such an approach with unrealistic demands and unjustified punishments. Thursday, period 3, physics. A bay gelding complains. The whole lesson I wanted to pee. I couldn't think because my stomach hurt. The physics lady decided to do a quiz as if she couldn't do something else. She wouldn't let me go to the bathroom, and it was all I could think of. I don't remember anything, and now on top of that, my stomach has been hurting since yesterday. Sounds at least a little familiar, an uncomfortable situation for a person, not to mention a horse. Unfortunately, horses are not so different from us. Often we get so caught up in our training we forget such simple things, especially at competitions. And the horse won't be in each and every situation either. Sometimes there's too much excitement around and it simply slips its mind. If the horse shows any symptoms that he wants to go pee, you should immediately dismount, loosen the girth, and possibly escort the horse back to the stable. Nothing else is acceptable. There are horses that pee with the rider in the saddle without any problems. There are rather few of them though. Our model horse would definitely be one of those if we didn't pay so much attention to such simple things. We often used to end our rides early because of his need to go to the restroom when he was younger, which is why the bay gelding. It still happens to us sometimes to end a ride early because of that. Take care of your horse's tummies not only for the difficulty of treating colic, but mainly for their comfort. Friday, a trip. A paint came back crying. My saddle turned out to be too small after winter. The lady put an extra bag on me. The straps squeezed me from all the sides. The other girl rushed us all with a whip to make it all go faster. The backpack pressed into my spine at every turn. Now everything hurts. I don't even want to eat. I'm skipping the next trip. And how is your horse this season? Will he willingly go on a trip with you? Contrary to popular belief, we often overload our horses with work after winter. It's beautiful, it's warm, it's relatively safe to canter along dirt roads without the risk of slipping, and we take advantage of that, often not remembering that the horses are still wearing their winter coats, that changing the coat is an effort for the body, that the horse's body may have changed over winter and the equipment may not fit anymore. People are starting to ask about feeds for picky eaters, and the owner often does not connect this fact with regular exhaustion. In fact, it is not surprising if after such a trip the paint says that he is not going on any trips anymore. Sometimes you will observe horses that already after crossing the stable gate begin to sweat and worry. Usually these are not ghosts and monsters, but regular stress related to previous overwork and an enormous effort. It's a good idea to think about this a little earlier and, for example, go for relaxing 10-minute walks. Then the horse will slowly get used to the little trips and will happily go on longer ones. Monday, first period. PE. The Welsh pony says, "Today we went outside and it was very cold. I ran in place because I wanted to warm up. The teacher told me to walk slowly and stand. I got very cold. It was freezing, and then at the end we walked slowly in this cold weather because she had to talk on the phone. The temperature matters both for horses and riders. We mentioned this in the video on how to do a warm-up on a horse while the trainer is not there. It's nice if the rider doesn't only care for his comfort. Controlling the time is also important. 5 minutes of standing in the cold while you are talking on the phone may be beyond the horse's strength, and we shouldn't be surprised by that at all." Tuesday, third period. A dark bay draft says, "I felt sick because the sun was burning my head all the time. The lady yelled that I did something wrong. Then she mumbled something. She said that it could be better. Summer is approaching. There will also be sudden hot days. Remember that the horse's body is large. There are also horses standing in the pasture all day, and here you especially need to take care of access to water and shade. You need to remember that horses are also prone to strokes and heart attacks. It is important to take care of those older horses in such conditions, and also those young, still growing ones can be overtired. Certainly in such conditions you can't afford to be nervous and set huge expectations." That is it for today, guys. I hope you liked the video. Let us know in the comments down below whether you are familiar with the types of lessons we talked about and if you like that type of an explanation. Remember to subscribe and leave us a thumbs up if you liked the video, and see you guys next time.